Disclaimer. Video is mostly opinionated. Not made to antagonize anyone who disagrees with me. It is not made to give into the culture war or anything like that. It's just a review of my opinions and mine alone that I'm expressing through a review format on a movie I personally dislike, but I am not saying that you people are dumb if you dislike this movie. If you like this movie, teach their own. I just don't like it. So, enjoy. In 2013, a few months after the movie Man of Steel was released, a crossover film was then announced in the same universe called Batman V Superman, where the two heroes fight against each other in a battle of epic proportions. Initially, I was excited for that film and waited eagerly for when it came out so I could see two of my favorite superheroes fight against each other on the big screen. Then 2016 came along, the movie was released in theaters, and as you can tell by the name of this video, it did not live up to my expectations at all. It just stunk for me. It was really bad. Why do I think it's bad? Well, I made this video to explain why I think Batman v Superman sucked, frustrations of what went wrong with this disaster. For the section of this review, I'll start out mainly with the story and character section, as I think those are the most important parts of the film. While most of the technical aspects I'll save for like the last half of the review, as well as what I think could have made this film at least slightly better than what it was. And now let's get to the review. Okay, let's start with the beginning of the film. The beginning does a decent job setting up how things are gonna go by showing Batman having been present during the events of Man of Steel during the part where Superman is fighting Zod while the wave engine or world engine or whatever was wrecking house on the city, saving a little girl, doing his best to save as best as he can, only to still find out that people have died during the invasion and destruction, and starts to blame Superman for the incident for not doing enough to prevent deaths during the fight. Which isn't as tricky setup and could have serviced well for this movie's plot, but unfortunately they don't go that route. What do they do instead? They instead insert in this weird frame-up job in the desert. We have Lois Lane and I guess this is supposed to be Jimmy Olsen there for some reason, and Olsen's only like in the film for like, what, a minute or so? And then they just stupidly kill him off, and then they go ahead with these terrorists killing all these people that I guess are working for Lex Luthor, which I'll get to soon. Start killing everyone, but here's the thing that bothers me with this scene. Superman doesn't show up during this entire massacre to save any of these people. Do you know when he does show up? When Lois has a freaking gun to her head, does he finally get off his ass, go all the way across the world, and then do something to save her, yet he couldn't have got up his rear end to do that to any of the people being massacred here. And don't tell me, oh, they have some sort of secret mental connection. That's ridiculous. How they have that happen? That has never been established, and I don't know how you could do that in this universe. Again, this isn't a fantasy film. This is a superhero action flick. Things have to make at least somewhat sense here, so it makes no sense why he couldn't have saved those other people, yet could save Lois and know what was going on. And oh, trust me, this problem will persist later on in the film, I tell you what. But yeah, that is the start of the issues of this film. All this did was make Superman kind of look like a selfish a-hole, that he cares more about his relationship with her than others' lives, that he couldn't have gone up and stopped them from being massacred by these terrorists. Instead, sitting it out until his woman has a gun pointed to her freaking head.
But wait! There's more!
Well, that pissed me off. What pissed me off more is how this ends up with everyone, including Batman, thinking Superman killed those people in the desert. Well, I agree they should be mad at Superman. They shouldn't be mad at him for that. Not just because he didn't murder anyone, but because he didn't save anyone except Lois either. But no, that is 100% glossed over because whoever wrote this film apparently didn't think too hard about that kind of stuff. Honestly, this is a ridiculous way to set the conflict. If you want to see a movie that does a conflict that gets superheroes to fight against each other better, watch Captain America Civil War. That does it much better. I'll get to that soon enough to explain why Civil War does what this movie does a lot better. Like, it doesn't make sense why they think Superman killed these people. Why? Mainly because there's bullet holes in their body. Superman doesn't use guns. His weapons are his strength and his heat vision, mainly. I mean, yeah, you could probably say the people who got torched may have been from his laser vision, but again, that could have also been anything, which it was torches, not his laser vision. And again, this is all just here to set up some contrived BS to get the plot started, instead of, oh, I don't know, maybe use the destruction of Metropolis in the last film to help get this conflict started. After this, most of the film was just Batman and Superman making blind assumptions about each other. They're to the point where the plot is basically that this would all be solved if the two have an actual conversation, but because these two make blind assumptions about each other, that's what causes conflict. Nothing about differences of opinions, nothing about how they handle things, just them assuming stuff based on the barest minimum of evidence. I mean, yeah, we later do find out this whole thing was set by Lex Luthor, and they try to further it more by having the scene where Superman's at a hearing, and this guy in a wheelchair blows up, destroying the place. I guess make it look like Superman destroyed the place, which again makes no sense of why he would do that. And apparently Superman couldn't detect the bomb because the wheelchair's made of lead, which is a weakness I never liked with Superman. But again, we don't need most of that because there's already plenty of reasons in this movie for Batman and Superman to hate each other. Because with Batman, we have this thing with him where he likes to brand his enemies for some reason, which again would already have been enough for Superman to dislike Batman. But of course, the film has to push it more than it needs to ridiculous levels to get these two to hate each other. Plus, there's also a lot of other BS in this film that makes Batman hate Superman for contrived reasons, such as this one scene where he has this dream about him wearing like Mad Max gear in the middle of the desert, being attacked by dudes and shooting people with a shotgun. Yes, they actually do have Batman use a shotgun in this scene. I'll get to that in the character spot. Only to be captured and then obliterated by an angry Superman, and then to wake up again and see, like, the Flash, I think, from the future, trying to tell him something about Lois being the key, which I assume was meant to set up for a future DC movie, which I guess we'll never see, since the DCU has been terminated, sadly. And because of this one dream, Batman literally decides to go apeshit and want to kill Superman because of a dream.
How do you even get dressed by yourself?
And then we get other weird stuff, like Lex Luthor is sending Bruce Wayne these newspapers, I guess, making him think they're from Superman, saying stuff like, you let your family die or whatever. And again, most of the manipulation Luthor does is mainly off-screen, so it doesn't really matter much in the long run, where we can't even see what's going on. It's like the film was too lazy to actually show us, so they decided to just have things happen and hope the audience puts the pieces together instead of, you know, putting in some actual freaking effort. Not to mention, our two titular heroes only meet, like, I don't know, 2 times in this film before the final fight. The one time at Lex Luthor's party, where Luthor tries to introduce them to each other, I guess he knows their identities, I guess he's trying to use the set conflict between them. I don't know, the film's not clear on that. And there's also the scene where Superman stops Batman during his attack on that truck holding the kryptonite, which leads to the famous, "Do you bleed? You will" scene. Aside from that, there's not much conflict in between. It just feels like they keep forgetting to put conflict in when there should be more conflict. Anyway, I think that's enough for the conflict session. Let's get to the characters now. For this section, I'll be mostly focusing on these 4 characters here. Batman, Superman, Lex Luthor, and Lois Lane. Okay, and maybe Wonder Woman a little bit. In regards to the first 3 on this list, they are the ones who have been messed up the most by this film's writing. We'll start with Superman, and oh boy, where do we go with this? Aside from maybe the beginning and I guess like the end, he mostly just stands around and does not much of anything throughout the film, except saves some people sometimes, and be all mopey and talk to Lois and his mom sometimes, but there really isn't much to him in this film. And he's not so much proactive in the film. Like, when someone blames him for something in the film, he doesn't really go and tell his side of the story. He just takes it and runs off. Like, really? This is how you want to portray Superman? as a guy who will just take anything that comes at him and not even try to defend himself. Pretty pitiful, guys. Pretty weak. Pretty weak. And now on to Batman. With him, they felt the need to go a little too dark with him, honestly. Like, I already went over in the previous section how they had him use guns on his Batmobile, and in the Nightmare sequence. I know you're gonna say, oh, but what about the Tim Burton films where he literally had guns on his Batmobile Batwing, how he let the Joker die, how he burned a dude? In the Burton films, there never been a big deal about the no killing code. That, and it was a mostly cartoonish gothic setting, so it could kind of get away with that even if it did make people a little sick. Here, on the other hand, they are making a big deal out of Batman killing people, and it's not set in a cartoonish setting. They're trying to set it in a semi-realistic setting, but they are doing it all the wrong ways. Plus, what I don't like about this film is how Batman just makes blind assumptions about Superman based on the most mundane things. I mean, kind of understandable that he would be upset with Superman over what he did in Metropolis and Man of Steel, but unfortunately, he doesn't seem to want to understand the other side of the story on Superman's end. Plus, he still thinks Superman's bad because of the stupid desert scene from the beginning, which, again, was unnecessary. And another thing I noticed in this movie is that they tried to kind of subtly explain why Batman's all dreary and gloomier than usual by implying that the Joker killed Robin. I don't know which Robin. Maybe it was Jason Todd. Maybe this was like a setup for Red Hood or something. I don't know, since we're not gonna see Red Hood in DCU since it's no longer a thing anymore. And we get that through this costume that's supposed to be Robin's costume with the words, "Joke's on you" on it. So I guess that's what's explain why Batman's all battle-hardened and willing to kill and harsh as hell. But it's not really explained beyond that, so we're left to just make mild assumptions. Also, it's kind of funny here that this Batman is willing to kill everyone in sight, but yet still lets the Joker live. Just think about that for a second, you'll see just how ridiculous that is in this universe. I mean, at least Batman 89 committed. I mean, that version actually did kind of kill the Joker, or so at least he commits, unlike this Batman, who doesn't commit. So I'm basically saying here is the problem with the Snyder version here is that he doesn't just kill bad guys. Man basically commits war crimes if they're in his way, proceeds to morally grandstand Superman and how he does things. It's why it's incredibly awkward how he'll brutally kill Lex Luthor's men, but won't kill Luthor himself. Speaking of which, next character we're talking about is Lex Luthor, and boy do I have a lot to say about him. I just want to let you know firsthand that I'm not against a different interpretation of Lex Luthor. Hell, I actually am kind of a fan of when DC does do reinterpretation of some of its characters. But the way they did it here was so not the way to do it. If you're going to do a reinterpretation of a comic character, at least do a reinterpretation that still has somewhat of a resemblance to what it originally was. Not do a complete 180 and turn the character to something it was never supposed to be to begin with. This Lex Luthor right here is only Lex Luthor in name only. He doesn't act like Lex Luthor, he doesn't sound like Lex Luthor. He's a complete and utter joke of a character in this movie. Luthor is usually depicted as an intelligent businessman who is sophisticated and believes in human supremacy of intelligence over superhuman feats like Superman. Yet this version of him acts like a complete lunatic, talking in a quasi-high-pitched voice, saying weird dumb things, having weird tics and inflections, acting less subtle and more goofy and silly that it's a miracle this guy isn't in the nut house already. Honestly, the personality they give him here would be better fit for someone like the Joker or the Riddler, or someone who's known to be more quirky and having a lot of tics. Not someone who's supposed to be one of the more subtle and intelligent villains in the DCU. And the fact they turned him from that into something like this is just agonizing, honestly. So I am not saying this is entirely Jesse Eisenberg's fault. This may have also been due to script writing or direction, but either way, the performance, in my opinion, still sucks ass. Plus, it's never really explained in the film why he's after Superman and Batman. I guess you can kind of say that maybe it has something to do with him being abused as a kid, judging by this one scene where he kind of brings that up. but it doesn't make sense in the context of this, as Superman couldn't have been there to help him, as Superman's only been around for like, what, a year or two? Plus, a lot of the actions he takes don't make sense in context. Some say that he was afraid of Superman's massive ability for destruction, but that also doesn't make sense when he creates Doomsday like 5 minutes later, and trust me, we'll get to that, which, as the movie shows, is almost more powerful than Superman alone. And I know there's some people who might say, well, it's supposed to be a younger version of Lex Luthor. Well, so is the version of Smallville, yet that version didn't come off as a over-the-top caricaturish version of the character. I mean, you can tell me that all you want, but it's not going to change my mind that this was a horribly portrayed, written, and acted Lex Luthor, and I'm never going to say it's good ever. Okay, now to our final major character of the film, Lois Lane. Most of the movie, she's either being rescued by Superman, or going around trying to find clues into what Lex Luthor is up to, mainly. Most of the film is just that with her. She does provide kind of a supporting role for Superman, trying to help him feel better about things. And during the final fight, she does have to get rescued again, but at the same time, she also helps Superman when he gets weakened again by the kryptonite. So yeah, there's nothing really much to say about her here, so we're just gonna move on to the next subject. And now, to the fight and ending section. After all this bullcrap, we finally get to see the fight the movie's been promising, and the last minute build up to it is honestly so dumb. First off, we have Lois Lane chloroformed and brought to the roof of Lex Luthor's building so he can shove her off the roof to get Superman there. And here is why Superman now wants to fight Batman. Because Luthor has kidnapped Superman's mom and is basically saying that if you don't fight Batman, I will kill her. It's also cheapest to fight because, for one thing, this isn't going to be a fight now between two different ideologies. He's only fighting now because his mom's in danger. It also brings up the problem that if Superman had just told Batman immediately we got to him that his mom was in danger, this whole thing could have been resolved in like, what, 5 seconds? It makes the majority of Luthor's so-called attempts to get Superman to hate Batman all pointless, because now it's all thrown away for a stupid hostage blackmail situation. Superman goes to fight Batman, for some reason doesn't immediately just say, hey, my mom's in danger, come help me. No, instead he doesn't get to the point, and the two have this fight that lasts about, what, 5 minutes or so? And most of the fight is just Batman spraying Superman with kryptonite gas or attacking with his kryptonite scepter. And you can barely see what's going on because the color grading is so dark and muted. And then we get to probably the worst scene in the entire film. The Martha scene. Right when Batman is about to stab Superman with the kryptonite spear, Superman then says, Martha! You have to save Martha! And for some reason, this is what gets Batman's attention and starts to trigger PTSD, I think, as he's now all troubled because that's the same name as his mom, so he thinks Superman's talking about his mom, I guess. He's like, why did you say that name? And Lois tells him that's his mother's name, and this, I'm not kidding, this is what caused the fight to stop, and for Batman to be okay with Superman now. Their moms have the same name. What?! So you're telling me this is how the two make up? Not because the two understand each other or anything that would have been more significant to the story. Oh no, it has to be because their moms have the same freaking name. So is this literally how Batman in this universe always reacts to anyone bringing up his mom? Does he always freeze in place and get all traumatized or whatever? Damn, let's just hope Joker doesn't find that out, or else Batman would be an easy target for him because he could just say, Martha, Batman frees up, then Joker could just shoot him or Joker gas him or whatever. And after Superman says this, and Lois tells Batman this, his mom, Batman is now totally close to Superman. Like, it's that easy. All you have to do, apparently, is to have the same name as Batman's mom, and you're instantly on his good side. And then all is forgotten about returns to their issue they're having with each other. For God's sake! And yes, while I am aware people have defended this scene, and I'm not going to be bashing them because you're allowed to defend whatever you want, I still cannot conceive how anyone could think that this is good at all. I mean, if you think it's good, fine, I'm just not going to understand it, but what the heck? So yeah, in essence, this fight was nothing more than just a waste of time, and a waste of our money that we spent to watch this piece of crap. Again, not trying to insult those of you who like it. I'm kind of just talking to the side of people who didn't like it. If you liked it, again, that's fine. But to the people who didn't like it, there you go. So then after that, Superman goes to confront Luthor while Batman goes to save Superman's mother. Superman gets to Luthor. Luthor has already finished creating his next masterpiece, quote-unquote. And upset that Batman didn't finish off Superman, he decides to create what is supposed to be essentially Doomsday. And I'm sorry, this is supposed to be Doomsday. This monstrosity right here looks like a rejected cave troll from the Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit, or Rings of Power, whatever. I don't want to give too much crap towards the animation designers, because I know they're not treated that well in the industry. But come on, is this the best you can come up with? Really? The CGI looks like something out of a video game, let's be honest. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, Doomsday in this film, for some reason, is just a mutated version of General Zod's corpse, mixed with Lex Luthor's DNA. Where have I seen this before? Nah, I'm probably just imagining that. Okay, let's continue. So anyway, the Wonder Woman shows up, and the three of them try to fight Doomsday in an extended battle sequence, where at one part, Superman has to bail out for a minute because Lois is trying to get Batman's kryptonite spear to use on Doomsday, but some rubble crashes on the water hole she was grabbing the spear from, so Superman has to help her again, and almost died from the kryptonite. And then he attempts to use the spear on Doomsday, and he dies from being stabbed by Doomsday. Yes, I'm not kidding. In the second film in the cinematic universe, you kill off Superman. Before you say anything, yes, I'm aware they did stuff like this in Arrow, Logan, and Avengers Endgame, but the thing is, in those shows, those heroes were actually built up through multiple movies and seasons, so when their arc ends via their deaths, it's an emotional, hardcore blow to the chest. This Superman has only been in one movie before this so far, so it just feels really rushed and forced to kill him off in his second film entry. After this, we get Superman's funeral, some mourning, I guess an implement that Lois may be carrying Superman's baby or something. I don't know what that's supposed to imply. And they also have a part where Superman and Wonder Woman tease Justice League, and then they briefly show some specific dirt rise from his coffin, trying to imply that he's still alive, so they can set the Justice League movie, blah blah blah, and that's our film. So yeah, that's the movie. Basically a big waste of time with dumb plot contrivances, dumb plot holes, dumb characterization, terrible decisions, bad setup, awful payoff, and a crap ending. But that's just the story aspects. What are the technical aspects? Well, in terms of this film's technical aspects, it's not that great. For one thing, the film is very ugly to look at. It has a lot of dark color palettes that you can barely see what's going on half the time, and it just makes the film muddy and unfocused. Not only this, but even a lot of the day shots feel muted in terms of its color. The CGI is mostly alright except for Doomsday, which it does look pretty terrible on Doomsday. For the most part, in terms of the fight scenes and such, it looks decent, although you can still tell it's not really there, more like a video game in certain shots. In regards to the costume design, I'd say the movie does pretty well with it. A lot of the costumes do look pretty good, although the colors are a tad muted, especially on Superman's costume in several shots of the film. Wonder Woman's and Batman's costumes look pretty good as well, though again, they are muted in several shots in terms of the color and effects, so they look a little dour in those scenes. The lighting is god-awful. I know what Zack was going for here, trying to make this dark and moody, but honestly, that does not mean you have to dim almost the entire film so you can barely see anything. Learn how to light better, Zack. Okay, on to the next section. How Captain America Civil War did this kind of plot better than Batman v Superman. In 2016, Marvel released the 13th film in the MCU lineup, as well as the third film in the Captain America trilogy, Captain America Civil War, a month after Batman v Superman was released. and did much better at the box office, earning over $1 billion, compared to Batman v Superman's $874 million at the box office. Both films explore similar themes and messages, such as if superheroes are actually doing more damage than good during their fights with evil, and if they should be kept in check to make sure they don't mess up. I'd say Captain America Civil War did that story a billion times better than Batman v Superman for various reasons, which I shall list here. Batman v Superman presents fascinating themes of power, fear, and responsibility, and struggles to earn its emotional beats and character motivations. Civil War, by contrast, capitalizes on years of build-up, giving its central conflict more clarity, depth, and emotional impact. Where Batman v Superman rushes to pit heroes against each other, Civil War takes its time, allowing the ideological clash to feel more personable and inevitable. Of characters and motivation and setup, Civil War does it much better because Civil War builds on years of character development from previous MCU films. By the time Captain America and Iron Man clash, we understand their history, personalities, and values deeply. In contrast, Batman v Superman introduces Batman and a newly active Superman without much groundwork. Their conflict feels more sudden and less personal, especially with Batman's extreme hostility towards Superman, feeling underdeveloped, reliant on stupid dream sequences and vague paranoia that makes no sense whatsoever. In terms of stakes and conflicts, Civil War presented a well-structured ideological divide with freedom versus control, with emotional consequences like the Sokovia Accord, Winter Soldier, and the death of Iron Man's parents. Batman vs has thematic weight, but the stakes are muddied by convoluted, stupid-ass plotting, with the involvement of Lex Luthor's scheme and a sudden doomsday monster at the end that shifts the movie's tone entirely to the point where the ensemble of Civil War is also much better as it handles a large cast well, giving each character moments to shine while still keeping the focus on Iron Man and Captain America. BVS, though, juggles multiple arcs, like Batman's origin, which we didn't need to see for the millionth time already, Superman's controversy, which had potential, but they just messed it up completely, Lex's manipulation, which was terribly handled and written, and the setup for Justice League, which was mediocre at best, and makes the film feel overstuffed and rushed in various areas. It's like they kind of repeated stuff like Spider-Man 3, for example. And in terms of the payoff, Civil Wars was emotionally charged. We understand both sides, and the reveal of Winter Soldier killing Iron Man's parents hit extremely hard. It was shocking and brutal. The Batman-Superman fight ends with a stupid Martha moment, which I guess was meant to humanize them, but it just was stupid. I'm sorry, it was stupid, and you can defend it all you want. It's stupid, stupid, stupid. I don't care what anyone says, okay? It was ridiculous. It felt lazy. Plus, Civil War was able to balance the serious tone with moments of levity and clarity, making the film emotionally distinguishable, digestible, and rewatchable. Batman v Superman, on the other hand, was relentlessly grim, and while that's a fine idea for certain media like The Dark Knight, it often felt too serious here, which alienated a lot of the viewers and dragged down the pacing for me. Also, in terms of both films' villains, I'd say Baron Zemo was a much better villain in Civil War than Lex Luthor was in Batman v Superman. Zemo has at least a more fleshed out motivation compared to Luthor, as his family died during the events of Age of Ultron, and he wants to avenge his family by tearing apart the Avengers, and we get to see how he does it, what steps he takes to do what he needs to do to separate them. With Luthor, you don't see much on how he tears Batman and Superman apart, aside from a few scenes that are kind of dumb, such as a scene where he tries to use this Kryptonian tech to merge his blood with Zod's to create Doomsday, where the machine apparently lets him do it, only because Luthor tells it that the Kryptonian Council is dead, and complies because of that, because the Kryptonians apparently are very terrible at security. I mean, with Lex, his motivations are murky. I don't know if it's about power, or jealousy, or some weird-ass, vague, anti-god complex. The film can't settle on a decision. His dialogue is cryptic for the sake of being cryptic, with stuff like, "The red capes are coming! The red capes are coming!" Like, what is that supposed to mean?
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
I mean, I know kind of what what he meant when he said the bells are ringing, because he was talking about how Darkseid's forces were coming soon. Like, that I got. But everything else, from the red capes are coming and stuff, I could not get by whatsoever, as it was just there to make him look insane, when that's not what Luthor's supposed to be. He's supposed to be an intelligent, corrupt businessman, not some crazy, mad scientist. Last thing I want to harp on these two films is the endings, because yes, I think Civil War did its ending a lot better than Batman v Superman's. With regards to the endings of each film, I'd say Civil War had the better ending. Because after Batman v Superman's final fight where Superman dies, we then get this long-ass funeral, then we get some bits about Lois and Superman's mom mourning, then we have Batman and Wonder Woman talking, discussing the foreshadowing of the Justice League, and then we have some dirt rush Superman's grave, trying to foreshadow that he's gonna return, blah blah, and that's basically it. Oh yeah, and then Lex Luthor goes to jail, gets shaved bald, and Batman not having the coconuts to kill him, just intimidate him, and the bells are ringing, ding 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 ding, crap. Again, none of that is really that sad or interesting or nuanced. It's just there so they can set up the Justice League film mainly and set up other DC films instead of, you know, being a good ending. Civil War, on the other hand, while having kind of a bittersweet ending, still had some merit for it that does set up other movies but in a better light. Captain America Civil War's final battle ends up with Captain America, Iron Man, and Winter Soldier trekking Zemo to this base in the Arctic, where Zemo, his final attempt to put them against each other, reveals to Iron Man that Winter Soldier killed his parents, prompting a 2-on-1 battle between Captain America, Winter Soldier versus Iron Man, as Black Panther apprehends Zemo. And at the end, Captain America and Winter Soldier defeat Iron Man, and the two escape together, while Iron Man is later sent a phone by Captain America in case he ever wanted to reconcile things. What I'm saying here is, Batman v Superman's ending ends with Superman's death. The moment is meant to be tragic and heroic, but honestly it comes off, in terms of emotional impactment, as hollow, due to the film's rushed pacing, uneven character development, which I've spoken about before, so the fall doesn't really linger as much, and it's undercut by hints of the return, softening the weight of the sacrifice, which is honestly underwhelming. The audience will barely have time to process Superman as a character, especially considering this is the second film he's been in, let alone mourn him in this universe. By contrast, Civil War ends on a more genuinely bittersweet note. Captain America and Iron Man's friendship lies in ruins, the Avengers are fractured, the ideological conflict leaves real emotional scars, yet there is still a glimmer of hope in Captain America's letter, an olive branch that acknowledges both the pain and the lingering bond between them. It's a quieter yet kind of heartbreak that doesn't rely on death for weight, but instead on the slow loss of trust between friends. Honestly, this might be a worse ending than the season finale to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which I might get to in a later video. Honestly, I'm saddened by this because I had really high hopes for this movie since it was announced back in late 2013. I was really excited to see two of my favorite superheroes get a battle out against each other in an epic battle of proportions, only to be disappointed by this crap fest of a movie that obviously Snyder did not understand how to do these characters properly. Luckily, I'm not the only one who thinks this about the film, as I've seen plenty of reviews from other people who have also criticized the film, one of my favorite reviews being the one by Nostalgia Critic, which has a pretty epic rant by Angry Joe at the end that I recommend you check out. So yeah, overall, Batman v Superman was a complete failure of a movie in my opinion. The characters were terribly developed and written, the visuals are very bland and bleak, the acting is okay on some characters and terrible on other characters. The effects are mediocre at best in my opinion. And the writing was just abysmal. Honestly, I've almost never been disappointed in my entire life by any movie aside from this. So this movie made a massive achievement on my life here. So yeah, that's my review. Again, that's just my opinion. If you enjoy the movie, more power to you. I won't take that away from you. But again, I don't like it, I don't think it's a good movie, and that's just me. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you want to see more content, it will come as soon as possible. And I hope you have a good day. Bye!